Good evening. I'm Vivian Kensington with ACN Evening News. Tonight we're covering a story that swept the nation in 1978. This is the case of Bakke versus the Regents of the University of California. The outcome of this decision had a major effect on the affirmative action programs of all state-run colleges. Our story starts 35 years ago in 1973. To tell our story, we have authentic news clips from contemporary newscasts. Alan Bakke is a Marine and former engineer in his early 30s.
I really hope I get into UC Davis this time. I don't think I could take another rejection. Today's the day the UC Davis decisions get released. Oh, I wonder if my letter's in the mail. Oh, here it is. Rejected? But I was so qualified. I was a merit scholar. I have a 3.51 GPA. Rejected, this is how I watched. It was because of that affirmative action program, I know it. Their racial quotas. And my age. I'm going to sue. This violates my 14th Amendment rights.
After moving through the lower courts, this case has made it to the United States Supreme Court on an appeal made by the University of California, who was ordered by the California Supreme Court to shut down its quota system. Last October, Archibald Cox defended the University of California, and Reynold Colvin argued for Bakke. Cox argued that this decision would determine whether or not minorities have access to higher education in the future, while Colvin argued that Bakke's rights under the Equal Protection Clause of the Fourth Amendment were violated. The Supreme Court has yet to issue a decision in this case. Wait, I'm getting something. Breaking news. The Supreme Court has reached a decision. Bakke's won with a 5-4 vote! Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, who is an expert in case implications, and he's going to explain to us the implications of this case.
Thanks, Concha. This court decision was written by Justice Louis Franken Powell, and it basically says that race can be considered in the admissions process, but that the quotas used by the University of California are now illegal because they violate equal protection under the 14th Amendment.
Good morning and welcome to The View. I'm Michaela, and joining me this morning is Dean Ward, who is here to discuss the recent Supreme Court decision involving Bakke versus the University of California. As you all know, this decision was made yesterday, ruling in favor of Bakke, and it is one of the most influential minority rights cases in recent history. Dean, why don't you tell us a little bit about your opinions on this matter?
Sure, Michaela. So basically, what had happened was that the university had legitimized affirmative action programs that included a quota. What the decision by the Supreme Court did was eliminate the quota. Now, for our viewers who really don't understand what that means, we just want to take a little time to clear what that is. Affirmative action is any program that gives minorities an advantage over people of the majority. What the quota does is a specific number that basically says, okay, we want to let 20% or whatever minorities into the university. This case outlawed these quota programs.
Fascinating. Thanks for clearing that up, Dean. I know I often find myself confused by big words such as quota and affirmative action. I know some of our viewers feel the same. Do you think that this was a fair ruling, or do you believe that without these quotas, minorities are going to be vulnerable to racism and discrimination?
Well, Michaela, that's definitely not easy to answer. Without these quotas, the admissions process could become fair, as only merits will determine acceptance or rejection. However, minorities are still struggling in America and don't have the same opportunities to excel as other Americans. They may also face racist bias in the admissions process without these quotas to protect them. What I do believe in is that these admissions processes are very subjective, and trying to put something as objective as a quota into them is really hard to do.
Interesting. I would agree that there is so much more to these universities for them to consider besides race. If it doesn't make sense to place a racial quota into any admissions process, I would agree with that. It doesn't make sense to place a racial quota into any admissions process. But I do believe that there is merit in a socioeconomic quota, and I think that this would offer an opportunity to many talented young individuals who otherwise wouldn't have a chance of improving their situation. Obviously, these individuals would have to be reasonably qualified, but the wealth gap in this country is such that we need to take action.
That's a really interesting opinion, Michaela. It'll definitely be interesting to see how this issue plays out in the future. Thanks for watching.
Now, in 2008, it's been 35 years since Bakke versus Regents of the University of California. Since this ruling, there have been no major changes in the Supreme Court's policy on affirmative action programs. However, there has been clarification on the policy in the cases of Gratz versus Bollinger, Grutter versus Bollinger, and Hopwood versus Texas. These rulings determined what we now view as appropriate levels of affirmative action in regards to how much and what kind.